Okay. In the second time around, when Susie came in, she tried to integrate the nurse acronym for communication while she was interacting with Vivian. She noticed how Vivian was feeling. She tried to name the feeling and understand how that was impacting her. She was respectful, and she responded, and she tried to show her support by offering comfort, offering Jell-O. The only thing she didn't do was explore the emotion further, which she just was trying to give Kalikian and the fellows their time for rounds.
Sure, so Vivian.
Yeah. So for Vivian, I feel like they really paid more attention to her as a person and less just in the first version, like they just were focusing on just her condition and not really looking at, like I felt like I was being looked at a lot more and talked to, and everyone tried to understand. When also it meant, I think it like meant a lot for if I was a patient, having people ask for their permission to start, I wouldn't want to have a bunch of people come in without asking me first, especially since Vivian had just been throwing up. So I thought that I was just treated more like a person.
Sure. So then moving on to Dr. Kalikian, the first thing that he does is he knocks on the door and he asks permission to enter to make sure that it's a good time for Dr. Baring for them to be doing the grand rounds. So after getting permission, they all enter. And even at that point, Dr. Kalikian, before beginning, takes the time to explain to Dr. Baring the point of grand rounds and what they as physicians are expecting out of that interaction, but then also asks if she has any specific needs that need to be addressed for that interaction as well, which allows her the opportunity to mention, hey, you guys tend to use pretty scientific terms. Is it okay if I stop you to ask to clarify things? Because for me, it's important that I understand what's going on. So just that interaction allows for a better understanding going into the examination, which is the reason that we took out the section where Vivian is kind of talking over Jason while he's giving his details on the examination, because we felt that now that she understands what grand rounds are, and now that she understands that the physicians will be willing to work with her with any confusion, she doesn't really feel the need to kind of have that monologue at that point. Another thing that Kalikian does is towards the end, instead of quizzing the fellows right in front of the patient in terms of the patient's side effects, which might seem a little bit, I don't know, like they're ignoring her. He instead asks one of the fellows to address Vivian and to inform her of the symptoms, which is more of a direct way of doing the same thing, basically. And then lastly, we decided to leave in the part where the fellows forgot to, say their goodbyes to Vivian. And the reason that we chose that is because we wanted to change the way that Kalikian responded to a mistake that happened in a patient interaction, because we weren't happy with how originally he just said, Jason, clinical, as if to, say, Jason, be a human and acknowledge, the person in the room. So instead, we added in a more humane way of addressing something, a mistake that can be made. So yeah, that's Dr. Kalikian.
Yeah, and for Jason, we just tried to make sure that he wasn't as cold and distant from the patient, and so by introducing himself more properly and actually having concern for Vivian was important in the beginning before he began the grand rounds, and also making sure he was asking permission before performing the exam and making sure at the end to cover her back up so that he didn't just leave the room with her abdomen exposed. It was also important that he made sure to talk to Vivian during the grand rounds instead of just focusing on Dr. Kalikian and the fellows, to make sure that she felt included. And at the end, just again reassuring her and making sure that her wishes and questions she have are important, and instead of just running out of the room, making sure to give a proper goodbye. Yeah. Cool.
That's good.